Welcome on Mini-Mobile Meetup number 2 about the quality. And here we will talk about the quality in mobile development. But actually not only in mobile, but in general. So yeah, and let's get started. No, we'll have, I have to say, we'll have three speakers. Me, I'm Anton Dudakov, Vladimir Merkuryev, and Igor Kurnikov. Yeah. 3 speeches about the quality. Yeah, come in, we're starting. Welcome. And first, I will be the first. Yeah. I'm Anton Dudakov. As I said, I work at Zina, and most of the time I'm mobile developer, and most of the time I am Android developer. But sometimes I do some pull requests to iOS, actually a lot last time, and sometimes from time to time I do some PRs to backend as well. Previously I was working in Sberbank in devices department, and before Sberbank I was working in Yandex automotive devices department. Yeah, and also I'm one of the speakers of Android Dev Podcast. It's a Russian podcast, and I'm one of the organizers of this meetup. Yeah, and what is actually Zina? Zina is actually the best payment solution that will help you to get money to your businesses from your customers, and maybe not for businesses, maybe for you as a person as well. And you know what else? We're looking for some backend star. If you know someone, or if you think you are a backend star, yeah, please come. And yeah, let's go ahead. What I will talk about today? I will talk about the reviewing the code and reviewing the code efficiently. What is efficiently? It's written here. It's with less energy, with a good benefit for everyone. And why should we talk about the code review? There are some reasons. There are some number of reasons. And the first, everything is about happiness. It brings you happiness, code review, and overall, eventually. And when you do code review properly, you spend much less energy, and you're happy. And when you do the code review properly, you keep the good relationships with your teammates, and your colleagues are happy. And of course, when you do the code review properly, you keep the code maintainable, highly maintainable, and your future maintainers are happier, of course. And of course, the properly code review keeps your product in a good shape, and your users are happy. And yeah, this is our users. This is how they look like. Our user with an iPhone and with the Android case. Yeah, this is our user probably, and he is happy. But what is properly code review? What we can say about it? Yeah, the structure of this speech will be: first, we will talk about responsibility, just a couple words, just to understand the feelings about making code review. Then we will talk about the structure and in which order should we do a code review, and then we will talk about attention, where to pay, where not to pay, etc. And of course, the last thing that you do in code review, it's a feedback. You leave a feedback, and it's better to leave feedback properly to keep the relationships, of course, because we know our teammates should be happy, and we are, of course. And there will be one more last slide as well. Responsibility. When we talk about the responsibility, we should remember that responsibility and the cause, it's 2 different things. The cause it's why something broken. And the responsibility, it's about who will fix it. And when we talk about responsibility and we talk about the pull request, the responsibility on both, on the author and on the reviewer. And if not the author, but the reviewer will fix if something is broken. This is responsibility. But at the same time, don't forget that you have a user and you're responsible for this code. You will fix it. And everything you do for user, for your user to be happy. You remember this guy who is happy, who is with iPhone and Android case. Okay, we got it. We understand the responsibility, and now what about the structure? The good code review, the proper code review should be properly structured. There are two approaches. The first approach is a review tool-based approach. So we open our review tool and we start just looking through the files in the order that review tool offered. And the second approach is feature-based. We open the code, we see the feature, we're looking for the entry point to the feature, and we start exploring it and see how the feature works. They are slightly different. They have their pros and cons, and let's move and talk about it. Review tool based. It's the easiest way. You need to just open your review tool and go through all the files sequentially, one by one. The good thing is you don't need to just look for the entry point, trying to find something where the feature starts. You just start reviewing everything, line by line, file by file. And you will not miss any file because you just go through them all. So it's a good thing. The bad thing about it that it's little harder to understand the code, little harder to understand the feature, how the feature works, because the feature can be split in between different files, and sometimes it's harder to understand. This feature is harder to understand, dependencies, the structure, and things like this. And this is why you can miss something. You can miss some bugs that are split between that depend on some circumstances in different files. And what about feature-based approach? Feature-based approach is a little harder. So you need to find the entry point to the feature and start going deep. But sometimes there are some files that you will go through while exploring the feature, and there are some files that you will not go through because they just some utilities files and they're not fully dependent on the feature, or the feature is not dependent on these files directly. So let's talk about both of these blocks. The first block it's easy. Well, not so easy, but it's easy to understand. You need to find the entry point, as I said, third time today. In mobile development, it might be a button, it might be a screen, or some navigation file. In Compose navigation, there's a navigation XML file. And if we talk about the iOS, as you know, there's a way to have a navigation file like storyboards, or I don't know, we don't use them, but maybe some of you use. But this also can be an entry point. And what else can help to explore the feature, to find the way how it works? Tests can help, of course, because in tests, good written tests are describe how the feature works. And what else can help? Checking out the branch also may help to understand the dependencies, the whole architecture of the feature, and etc. etc. So Sometimes it might help, but it's discussable thing. Sometimes when you have to check out the branch, maybe this pull request is too large and it's too complex. Maybe it's too hard to understand. Maybe it's too not well written code that you have to download the branch and check and go in through the code inside your IDE. It's better to understand the whole. It's good when your code is fully understandable just from pull request, but sometimes you have to. Another block, the feature independent block. It's okay. Yeah. As I said, it's some files that are not involved into the feature directly. So they indirectly, but they still changed in the pull request. It can be some different utilities files, some your helpers, some your different things that you have in the code. It's written here. Yeah, and resources. Resources are also sometimes it's easy to miss something. Sometimes it's easy to skip something. But there are some things that can be not so good in resources, like the things I described here. It's like duplicate some characters that you don't need, that you don't want to have in the code, and yeah, maybe some of resources violate your key naming convention. You have it, yeah, at least non-verbal, at least non-documented, but yeah, but you have this key naming convention. Yeah, and sometimes bitmap instead of vector instead of bitmap. Sometimes it's better to use bitmap. Sometimes it's better to use vector. So yeah, there are some best practices in it. And you know what? Many of the things are automated. So it's better to see them if it's not automated, but it's better to automate them. Don't miss it. Good things about this approach, the feature-based approach, is it's much easier to understand what is happening in the code, what this code is doing, and it's easy to understand how it works, all the dependencies, how the different blocks depend on each other, and how all the flows work, control flow, data flow. It's everything easy to understand with this approach. And this is why it's easier to catch some tricky problems in this code, tricky bugs. But at the same time, it's harder to find entry point. For example, like in this request, in this pull request, it's really hard to find an entry point. Yeah, maybe it's not the largest pull request in your life, but believe me, even in this one, it's really hard to find the entry point to the feature. And sometimes with this approach, because you don't go sequentially by files one by one, you can miss some of them. But we have a solution, of course. GitHub has perfect tool for reviewing. It has just check marks. If you reviewed the file, set a check mark, and halas, it's reviewed, and you will find all the unreviewed files. That's it. And what to choose? Which approach is better? Actually, I prefer always using feature-based approach, because yeah, it's easier to catch bugs, much easier, because you understand everything. I want to understand the code, and as I said previously about the responsibility, if you want to be responsible for the code that you review, it's much better to understand the whole flow, and the feature-based approach gives you an ability to understand it. But sometimes when it's just a small pull request, or not small, but with number of different changes in many files, like you changed some analytics events, and you have a bunch of files from different features, and it's just one line in each file that you just need to understand, is it in the correct place you send this event? Yeah, review tool based, that's perfect. I did it a couple days ago with the example I said. Yeah, and it works perfectly. Just find anything. But as I said, in most cases, I prefer using feature-based because it's much easier to catch bugs. About the attention, what we want to look at on the pull request. Yeah, we will talk about where to look at, where not to look at, and something about the something, and we'll talk about something else. Where should we want to talk? What should we pay attention? Of course, the first question should be, am I the right person to review this code? And to answer this question, you need to understand, do you understand this code? Do you know this code? Are you the code owner of this code? Can you review it? Can you understand it? Do you know this code? And if yes, you're definitely the right person. But if no, you also can be the right person to be in the pull request, because maybe you need to learn this code. Maybe you've been added because author want to share some information with you as well as with the other teammates. Some pull requests are not only to review but also for sharing information. So probably you're the right person. The second question is, does this code works, and does this code works properly, how described in the task? Does it do the thing that we asked author to do? And some media may help. I like to add, and I like to see in pull request some screenshots from the code or videos, or maybe compare this screenshot with Figma. Yeah, does this code coded properly? Yeah, and based on this data, and also one of the sub-questions of this, all the cases are supported in this code. So does it cover all the cases? Yeah, and tests may help here also. Does the code properly designed? So does it integrates properly into the overall project? Does it use same approaches like you use in the overall project everywhere? And does this code scalable and maintainable? And actually, does it need to be scalable? But because sometimes you have the code that need to be written fast, and that's it. And then you throw it out after a couple weeks or after a month. Maybe you don't need to scale it in future. And sometimes the code should be just work fast, and you don't want to maintain it, and you don't want to scale. You just need the fast code in one place, and that's it. And maybe you don't need to. Sometimes fast code even hard to understand. But in most cases, yes, it should be scalable, of course. What else? Maybe you have some rules in your company, your code style, or maybe you have some rules that you bring through your life inside your heart. And yeah, if you talk about the company code style, of course you have it. Yeah, sure, of course you have. Don't you? And after the company code style, there should be some code style in the language or in the technology that you chose. And of course, there are some best practices in languages in Swift, in Kotlin, in Java. There are best practices, and you can There are some best practices in working with nullables, with some types, when to use if, when to use when. It's well documented in Kotlin. It's documented in Swift, of course. So there are some best practices. There are a couple examples. If you're not familiar with Swift, it can be very interesting for you. The last example in Swift, it's very tricky thing. For me, it was really hard to understand, but it's a best practice, of course. What else? You can base your approach on reviewing the code and what to pay attention to. You can base it on some smart books or on some articles that you like. Yeah, I like this book, Clean Code, and there are some examples where you want to pay attention about remove unused code, don't keep commented out code in the code base, and don't even use comments. It's better to make your code understandable and have meaningful names and things like this. Yeah. It's just an examples from the Clean Code book. What else? It's better to pay attention to tests, because tests are also a code and they should be reviewed and they should work, of course, and they should work properly, not just written. Yeah, they should launch, and they should have asserts, and it's better to try to understand all the cases are covered with tests or not. Yeah, and I didn't say about the code test policies. I believe you have them about code coverage and things like this. Yeah, it's just a reminder, like your company code style, some language best practices, yeah, and books and tests, and yeah, maybe something else. We can discuss it after the presentation. Yeah, but let's move along. Yeah, and of course, as I said previously, most of these things or some of these things can be automated. Don't spend time on things that can be automated. Just spend time for automation, and then stop it. Don't spend. What else? Yeah, some common sense, like don't repeat yourself, or single responsibility on methods or classes or things like this. Some just common sense in our software engineering world. Yeah, and also it's better to pay attention to concurrency. If you have a concurrent code, you need to understand, does it have maybe race conditions issues, or maybe deadlocks. And when we talk about concurrencies and when we talk about deadlocks, you probably know these guys on the picture. If you don't, it's dining philosophers, and they have a problem. And if you don't know the problem, just Google dining philosophers problem. And after you Google it, you probably will find some solutions for them. Also, please pay attention to complexity. Does this code too complex or too complicated? Maybe you can make it a little faster, or maybe you can make it more readable, more maintainable, and things like that. So complexity, it's both for complexity about the readability and complexity in terms of performance. Documentation. Yeah, a couple slides. I remember a couple slides ago I added the point, don't use comments. But what about documentation? It's comments, but sometimes you need, if you implement, if you develop some public API or you develop some library, of course you need documentation, and it also can be automated, the documentation. But if you make something public, yeah, please add a documentation. Error handling. Don't swallow errors. All right, some of them you can, but don't swallow all the errors, because please respect your user. Your user deserve to have some explanation of of what is happening in the app. If user presses the button, he wants to understand what will happen then. So, and if error happens, don't swallow it. Show it to the user. Please explain user what happened and what he can do. And of course, check this on pull request. All the errors are properly handled. And last but not least, check if there's enough logs. Is there enough information to understand what is happening in the app and how to reproduce a bug if the bug is happening. And logs and of course analytics events. Your product will say thank you for it if you remember about it. And actually, maybe it's already in the task. I don't know. It's better to have it in the task, but if not, maybe someone miss it. So, but on review, you will not miss it. And the one more thing about logs and about analytics events, please check. Is there some private data? Because there shouldn't be any private data in logs or analytics events. It's better not to have it. Some private personal data, users' data. We talked about what we want to pay attention to and when we don't want to pay. Of course, as I said, it's third time I wrote here lint it. So code style again, third time. Just remember, lint it. Everything you can automate it, and don't spend your energy for this. Just automate one time, and that's it. The code that was generated by code generators, why it is in the repo? Is it intentional? I understand sometimes it can be intentional, but should it be? Is it the proper case when it's intentionally appear in the code? Because it's not always a good thing to have a generated code in the repo, and you don't want to spend time to generated code. It's better to spend time to code generators and to test for code generators. Review them. Don't review the code they generated. And there can be some things, some know-hows by that author of the code is invented. So when author done something new, something interesting, but it's not like it's not so usual for your project, but it's so creative. Please give the author an ability to be creative, to express himself. So why not? If these changes are not violating some your code conventions and some things in your code, why not? Why not? Maybe it's time to change something in your approaches. When it's new approach, when it's something beautiful, why not? Yeah, but in this case, you will want to give a feedback about this approach. So give it. About giving a feedback, first of all, be polite. And actually, I like this region. Here, almost everyone is polite here in this region. I like it. Yeah, and you too. Be polite, praise, and say to author something warm, something good. It's nice to take this to take this feedback. Yeah, please make a photo, of course. This is for my pull request. Not all of them. Chick. Eight. What? Okay. Yeah, it's a good slide to stuck on it. But it's better to continue. Yeah, let's try. No? Eight. doesn't. Let's try. I tried. Yeah, it works. Yeah, I can do this.
Aren't you tired yet? Have strength? Maybe you can raise a hand if there's Android developers or iOS. So let's raise a hand who is Android. Cool. Nice. And do we have iOSers here? Cool. Anton, maybe I can be your clicker and sit down there.
How many Android developers need to fix a clicker? No? Okay, can someone help me? Come on. Wolf, be my clicker. You need a chair? Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, if you found something, some error, it's Max, it's here. If you found some error, please describe the steps how that lead to an error, and please describe how it appears in the app, how it will appear in the app, and it's nice to suggest your own solution here, like Max did, and it's GitHub is absolutely fantastic thing. You can suggest your solution, and the author can just make a commit directly from pull review tool, just from GitHub, without open it in IDE. Next slide, please. If you completely disagree with some approach or with something, with some block of code, please describe why. Describe with the references to books, to some articles or some guides or to something. So it's good to have some references, and it's better to add a link to it. Don't leave author alone with the internet finding the approach that you referred to. And also there is some way to give something to tell about some small thing that it's that doesn't break the code, but still something wrong. It's needs, like needs, there should be a new line, needs, there is some extra line, needs, there is a please start with capital letter, and etc. etc. So nothing special, but still it's better to fix it. Yeah, and if you have a bunch of needs in the pull request, will you approve it? Will you let author just merge this pull request and without going through the whole pull request? I would say yes. I would say yes, and if it's only needs, almost every time I'm just approving this pull request. And if not, well, it depends on on your relationships with author. If you agree to and you fully know how author of pull request will address this full feedback, if you fully agree with him and you fully agree on how it will be developed, yeah, I also just leave in the comment like this, and halas, done, approved. But if not, if you don't understand, if you know that it should be fixed, but you still don't understand how author will do it, yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you, but yeah, if you don't understand and if you want to look at the pull request again after feedback addressed, after something new implemented, it's better to not to approve at all, because for some reason unintentionally author can just land it without letting you know. And every pull request finishes with some final comment in the review. Every review finishes with some final comment. And again, be polite. If you have something to say, some warm words, something pretty, say it. Yeah, something like this. But at the same time, if you have some different emotions, not so positive, when you want something to say about the pull request and about some approach, yeah, be supportive here, and support author and help author to become better developer. Yeah, like here, polite and just perfect pull request with yeah, and there was some good example of how should I do this. Yeah. And once you left the feedback, yeah, you're done. You're polite, you're good. And of course, yeah, as I said, there's a last slide, and the last slide is about the literature, what to read. Yeah, as I said, Clean Code by Robert Martin, absolutely fantastic book. I love it. Effective something, Swift or Kotlin or Java or anything else, just Dart maybe. Yeah, just almost every language has a book about effective something. Of course, best practices. Yeah, I didn't try it here. Best practice about your language, but if you're a Swift developer, you know where to read them. If you're a Kotlin developer or Java, about Java, I don't know. But if you're a Kotlin developer, you know where to read them on JetBrains website, of course. And this QR code will take you to the Google Code Reviewers Guide. Google published there some internal description of the process of code review, how they do it, how it's better to do that. It's also interesting thing to read that helped me to understand how to do the proper code review. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you. So, are we ready to talk about it? Of course.
Please raise your hand and I will give you a mic.
Thank you. Thank you for the awesome presentation. Wanted to ask two questions. First is more concrete, and it's about... Okay, I forgot it. Okay, I'll ask the second one first. So code review is something about balance, always finding a balance between...
about what?
About balance. Like you try to balance between asking for a change and not making a person to do changes that are not relevant to the PR. Like maybe, for example, there is a problem with scalability, right? But you mentioned there is a small feature and you don't pose this question for this feature. But how do you find this balance? At what point scalability starts matter, or like this minor point starts matter? Like obviously, obvious bug is a problem, but where do you find this point where you reject the PR based on this like issues that are not directly leading to a bug?
You mean the issues or some lines of code that are not that have been brought by different pull request, not this one.
No, this PR, but there is a PR and there is a problem with it. But the problem is will not lead to a bug. It's some kind of problem like with scalability, with something, maybe it doesn't align with architecture like 100%, but the change for this would be like will have some effort to do. Like you need to rewrite some stuff. And how do you usually find this like balance to say, okay, here you actually need to change something, and here, okay, let's
do
consider
what?
this. Yes, let's maybe plan it
but,
for.
but let's do what? Let's do what? It's the question about let's do what. Here you need to change something, and here you don't need to change it, but it's better to change it. But I don't know why, and I don't know when. So usually in cases like this, if we need to change something, let's change now. Why should we take this technical debt? Why? We don't. If there is a reason to take it, if there is no time, if we have some strong commitments, if we are in some rush mode and we have to ship as soon as possible. That's fine, to be honest. But as any debt, you need to understand when you to pay it back. If you what I usually do, I create a task or I ask the author of the pull request is create a task for you and add it to the next or screen after conference. Yeah, it works? Nice, thank you. It's the last slide, so it will not work forward. Thank you.
Okay, so to summarize, you will push for it unless there is a clear reason not to do it. And if there is a reason, you still need to create a task and like ask a person to create a task for it, right? That's your approach.
Yeah, to pay back a technical debt because
Makes
you need to
sense.
pay this. I wouldn't say better. Thank you for summarizing.
One last question is more concrete. So recently we have enabled resetting the approvals after new code is pushed. So for example, here, as you showed, there is a nitpicking and like you approve, but there are some comments that can be tackled, but like may not be tackled, like nitpicking, right? But if the approval will be reset after any push changes, this doesn't encourage people to actually change them, right? How do you feel about resetting the approvals after the new code, and like whether the new changes should actually be reviewed or you leave them up to the author?
Oh, it's a very good question about do we need to reset approvals after there are some new changes? It's a very good question, and I don't have some direct answer on it. I was working with the resetting approvals, and I was working without it. And maybe in some teams you have to reset them. Maybe sometimes, but you will not reach disability. You will not have disability like I said, like approval with nitpicks. No, you will not be able because what the matter of it? It doesn't make sense. So I prefer in my last in Zina, in Sberbank and Yandex. No, in Yandex we've been resetting it. In Sberbank we did not, and in Zina we don't reset it. So but actually in Zina we're a pretty small team. We believe each other, so that's fine. That's fine. It actually depends on the team. It depends how the team decide to do it, but I prefer not resetting it because.
Thank you.
Yeah. So somebody, you have a question?
Hi guys, I have just a small question about the pull request descriptions. So what do you think, what should we put to the descriptions? Like, should we request too much details to understand the code, even if we are maybe not the best persons? But sometimes if we are requesting too much details, we can see the conclusion that people start to avoid adding details and descriptions. So how we can find the good balance in the pull request templates?
It's a good question, and actually, creating a good pull request is another topic for the speech, because it's really hard to create a good pull request with good balance, with description, with split it to different commits or to in everything in one commit. So Sometimes it's cool to review pull request commit by commit, and it's fun. And about the description, about comments, about things like this, yeah, I usually do, and I see like some other folks are doing the thing when they just add comments in the pull review tool in GitHub pull request. They just add comments to their own pull request in the GitHub. So I did it for this, I did it for that, and I like this. I like this approach because it's easy to review it. Because and when you just scroll through the GitHub reviewing tool, you just see these comments in the pull request with the description. About the pull request at all, description in the pull request, I personally prefer having some UI in pull request, because just to understand how it look like. Because in our world, in mobile development, many pull requests are about UI, and it's good to have the UI, the screenshots in the pull request. I like to have them. And about the description, it's I don't like when it's too much written in the pull request. It's better to go and read through the task, because every pull request should be bound with the task. And if it's bound, you can just read the task and understand what should be done, and then you go through the code and see what is really done.
Thank you. I see.
Some questions?
Thank you. Hi all. Thank you for presentation. Anton, I have a small question, but probably it's a big talk. When you have a controversial opinion after, for example, creates a merge request and the reviewer says that he found some bad practice and they think that it's a bad practice, but the author don't agree with it, what do you think usually use in this? So it's blocker, or okay, we go next step?
You mean in your pet project you review someone who, or
you create the merge request, I saw the code and say that, okay, this feature have a problem, and I write the polite opinion, the polite message, and share some links on the problem, which I think that it's a problem, but you don't agree with it. So with how long we make, I don't know, conversation about it, and it would be the blocker for you, or you will merge this code without my approval?
It's a good question, and it's you should be agree. Actually, you should be agree with the author, with the reviewer. You should be agree, and when you're not, just talk to each other, have a conversation, ask someone else, third party, who can just mitigate this problem.
Okay, thank you.
So you talked about two things. One is tool-based code review, and another is feature-based code review.
Can you repeat and closer to microphone?
One is tool-based code review. There are different tools in the market, like SonarCube is there, and
I was referring to GitHub, just GitHub, and this GitHub web tool for code review. But also I never tried to do it in Xcode. Did someone try to do reviewing the code in Xcode? No, probably not. But in Android Studio, in IntelliJ, it's built-in review tool, so you can open pull request in Android Studio, right in the Android Studio, and review the code. And there is also will be like check boxes that file is already viewed or not. But the bad thing about it that they're checked automatically. Just you open the file, yeah, checked.
So, any other questions? Okay.
So my question may be related to the pull request more than the review. So do you have like set rules for the pull request to set a minimum of approvals before merge? And that's the first question. And the second question is, do you set rule when should we review the PR? So for example, a lot of times, like in the middle of the day, hey bro, can you review my PR? As a developer, you will lose attention, like you are focusing on your task and you need to switch. And so is there you experienced this before, right? Like,
Yeah, sure. So the first question is smaller. So actually, one reviewer should be always enough. But sometimes it should be more than one reviewer, because when your project is really big and it involves different parts or different modules, and each module has a code owner, so you need to have approval for each module, and the repository can be set up like it will automatically add the code owner for some specific code, and it depends how many code owners will review tool add. But I saw pull requests when I was working in Sberbank. We've been doing a firmware for a device, and it had a lot of modules and a lot of apps. It was mono repository, and sometimes you've been changing some library that is used in, for example, 20 apps, and you have to change all the 20 apps because you just refactored some interface of this library, and you will have 20 reviewers here. You will have them, but since you changed only some interface, maybe you don't need 20 approvals because you changed not a lot. But if something else, if you changed a lot, yeah, you'll have to get. If you changed 20 apps in one pull request because they're in one mono repo, yeah, you will have 20. You'll need 20 approvals because there are different code owners. What else? But if it's one app, if it's one project, one code reviewer should be enough. And if you share the code ownership between all of you.
When should you review?
The second question. When to review it? How to manage the time? I think I have to do another speech about the developers' time management and self performance. I don't know, self time management and self energy management, because it's a big topic. It's actually sometimes it depends on you how you manage your time. When it's easier for you to review the code, when is it morning, is it evening, or you use approach with a Pomodoro timer, like when you 25 minutes you work on some feature, 5 minutes you recover, and then again and again and again, and maybe you can build your own I don't know, framework how to work on it, and maybe on Mondays you will do it on mornings, maybe on Tuesdays you will do it on evenings. So it depends how you live, how you work, how you combine your balance between work, life, and reviewing the code.
So thank you all. I think we have a little break for a few minutes to
Thank you.
prepare for the next presentation. Thank you, Anton.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for questions. Yeah.